and welcome to Thinking is Free, proudly brought to you by Chinmaya Mission New Zealand.
Hari Om, welcome back. My name is Akash, and in the studio we have Ishaanji and Pooja.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
The wounds are fresh. It's sore and it hurts.
You really need to learn how to lose. Don't you?
The pain.
2 big losses in the span of a few hours.
Yeah.
It hurts. Just what do you do?
Akash, do you want to fill our audience in about what we're talking about?
So this morning, the All Blacks played South Africa in the Rugby World Cup final.
And they lost.
Yes, a loss.
A marginal defeat.
1 point. That was all that was in it. And then the New Zealand men's cricket team.
The Black Caps lost to Australia. Oh, that hurts as well, doesn't it? 5 runs. That's it.
So I think while it's fresh, the nation's in a state of mourning.
Akash has worn black today.
I'm there in support.
Really
of
hurting.
Teams, I'm still standing
In
with
mourning.
them.
Yes.
How do we deal with a loss? We all experience the loss in different parts of life, and for those players who their job is to win.
Yeah.
Their job is to go out there, represent the nation. They are the best at what they do. And their one job is to win the trophy, win the title, claim it for the nation. And when you're in whatever situation they're in, you're putting your whole body, your mind, all your focus on the line to do it. And when you come away with 1 point or 5 runs, that's all that's in it. You've given everything. How do you deal with everything that comes after that match, after the time's gone? And this is just like in this moment now, it'll move on and people move on, other things come about, and before we know it, 4 years down the track.
How painful was the 2019 World Cup final? Cricket World Cup final.
Can't even talk about it. I'm not as affected because I don't really watch sport, but yeah, still, I know that people really felt it.
Exactly, and it's the same. Like we still talk about when we didn't even make it out of the semi or quarter final in the rugby because of a forward pass, and you start blaming the officials.
Yep.
You start looking at all these externalities to the game, but at the end of the day, you got to look at your own performance.
Yep.
It comes down to you and who you are as a person. So how do we?
And it's just not about sport. We're applying this to life.
Yes,
right?
Through the lens of,
Through the lens of sport.
Sport.
Yes, absolutely.
How do we apply this to life? And what I wanted to say is we can look at this on a very high level and on the bigger picture. But how do we go through day to day? How do we get through today and tomorrow having experienced a type
Losses,
of loss? Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Pooja?
Well, I'm just thinking back to losses I've experienced in my life, and I always give myself a moment to just feel it. And I don't know if this is right or wrong. This is just what I do. So I give myself a moment to just feel sad or angry or upset, whatever it is. And then after the emotion has passed, then I act on it. So then I feel like I'm a lot more rational once I've kind of let that emotion pass through. I haven't really found a way to just not have the emotion affect me. And I think that would be the ideal, is you're so you have so much equanimity that you can actually just face it as it comes. But I do need to take a moment to step away and then I can face it.
Yep. Yourself, Akash?
Feeling it, just, you know. I think just being in the moment and
It's mourning for a few days.
yeah, you gotta let the emotions play out.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can also look at the logic and everything.
Yeah.
You know, you can intellectualize every single step, every single moment of what's happened, where things have gone right or wrong, and then I think what it comes down to is the attachment to the goal. You know, but like thinking about these athletes, you know,
Yeah.
again, it's their job. So I'm
Right.
thinking about it to my job, and if something wasn't to go right on site, you know, and we didn't win a job, then because you've invested so much of yourself personally into it.
It's interesting what you said about winning being their job. I don't think winning is their job. The job is to play the sport
Do you
to the
think
best
though?
of their abilities,
Okay.
right? And represent a nation in that sport that they're so good at.
Mm-hmm.
Winning's just a byproduct. If I'm so focused only on the outcome, it is that anticipation, that anxiety, that fear that actually saps our ability to perform at the peak levels. And therefore, and this is so amazingly put in the Bhagavad Gita, that in order for us to act most efficiently, to actually be able to deliver our best, we need to be detached from the result. All we need to focus on is our own actions. Because really speaking, the outcome is not in our hands. There are so many factors that go into creating an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
We think we are the controllers of our destiny. We are contributors to a given situations. We are not the controllers of it. And I think just going back to that example of sport, the way Kane Williamson presented himself and the words that he used when they were handed the defeat at the 2019 Cricket World Cup final, though they did their best, they were actually matching England on every possible level, because they drew in the 50 overs, and then they had the 1 over, what do you call it?
It's almost like a golden
The super
goal.
over.
Super over.
Super
right?
over.
Yeah.
And that was a draw as well.
Mm.
So they're actually on par.
Yeah.
And then
It's
there
going down
is,
to penalties, right?
right, even so it's like saying the penalties are also on par with each other. But then, there is some rule that has to distinguish one from the other, just so that there is an outcome. And sometimes the results fall in your favor, sometimes they don't. And he said, that's the nature of the game. Someone wins, someone loses. Yes, it's hard, but that's life, isn't it? Sometimes you just have to take one on the chin and say, hey, well done, we'll try again next time. But if we get bogged down by the result, it basically renders us incapable of doing our best.
Mm-hmm. But like still, like if you identify with your job and your position so strongly, that's a lot to.
But identifying with our job and a position is identifying with the work we do, not the outcomes that we get. The outcomes are never in our hands. Like, even if I'm a salesperson or a manager, how the other person responds, or if I am trying to sell something, what the customer buys, or if I put in a tender, if I win the tender or not, I can only do my best. The result is not in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
But
Can anyone say that, yes, the result is 100% in our hands at all times?
No, I don't think the result is in our hands, but I think for that example that you took, it's also like your job's, like the security of your job is dependent on your performance, which is based like measured from the outcomes, right? So I
Yes.
think I'd say the same with like a sports team. Like I think the success of a sports team and like kind of the prestige or the legacy that they have is behind the outcome of their performances. I think they're probably like 1,000 different games that they've played really well, but people only really remember the ones that they've won. Do you know what I mean? And like even with work, like I think my job wouldn't be as secure if I wasn't performing and yielding certain outcomes.
I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, New Zealand's never won a World Cup.
In which sport?
Cricket.
In cricket.
Oh, okay.
Right? The Black Caps have never won
Yeah.
a World Cup. But in the cricketing world, any given individual's favorite team after their home team is New Zealand. The Kiwis rule the hearts of all cricketing fans. How is that possible?
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're, good
It's
sportsmanship.
the spirit of cricket that they imbibe and they live and they play. The brand of cricket that they play
Mm-hmm.
has given them that prestige of being the nicest guys around in
Yeah.
cricket. And not just being the nice guys, but actually playing a really good brand of cricket.
Mm-hmm.
And they consistently
The
perform as
sportsmanship
well.
and- yeah.
It's not that they were amazing at all times, but
Yeah.
it's the spirit that they imbibe.
Right.
And with that, the results have improved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And we acknowledge that, the New Zealand Cricket Board is not as well resourced as the Australian or the English or the Indian Cricket Board, and therefore we have our limitations. We don't have an unlimited amount of resources and players and games that we can play, and yet we make the most of what we have, and I think that's what really matters. It's not the outcome, it's what we put in.
That's a good example.
Bringing it back to the loss though. How do you get? Okay, we understand that for not to be driven on the result,
Yep.
but we're here now,
Yep.
right? So what do we do to get through this?
So again, if we focus on the action rather than the result,
Mm-hmm.
was the game played really well? I don't know about the rugby. I've stopped following rugby for a while, but I do follow cricket.
I can talk on that. 14 guys, and they came back within
Yeah.
a point. So,
Yeah. So they did their best
Yeah.
with what was
100%. Yep.
offered to
Mhm.
them. And I think the Black Caps coming so close to winning it, I think 388 is the highest score at a World Cup. That would have been chased down, and they came 5 runs from chasing it down. So they've done an incredible job. Was a good level of cricket played by the Black Caps? Yes, absolutely. Would I be proud of them? Absolutely.
And
Would I
same for the All
hold this
Blacks,
loss
yeah.
against them?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yep.
So you have so many wins already, but when we choose to focus only on the negative outcome, we get bogged down by it, and we are in a state of mourning. It need not be, because so many things were done right.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing our best, in giving it all that we have, I think that's a great positive to take home. Yes, we don't win the game. The final outcome's not in our favor, but we've done the best.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned a lot. We've offered the best that we could. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's the nature of life, and that's the nature of every game. Yeah.
So,
I mean, someone has to win and someone has to lose, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose.
but even in that loss, even when you're appreciating how well you've played and you're saying you gave your best effort, there's nothing you could have done differently. Even then, the narrative still becomes, oh, we'll get them next time, And you're still focused on the outcome of next time. You're not, like, we still haven't...
Who's we?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about, like, when people are talking about in sport, right? Like, so they'll be like, oh, we'll get him next time, and next World Cup, like in another 4 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But even then, even in that loss, they're still focusing on the outcome of the next time, you know? So how would it be best to like reframe your mind to appreciate how well you've done? Because sometimes it just sounds to me like appreciating how hard you've worked is a little bit like a participation trophy, you know, like you're like, oh, I did my best. Like what? Like, because I think the purpose of sport for me, how I've watched it, is to win. And I think like maybe that's just like incorrectly framed in my mind from the beginning, but there's like certain things where like the purpose of you doing it is to get the outcome, right? Like, so even if I take it for like life, then like I'll have a certain goal, and if I don't reach that goal, the purpose of my actions was to attain the outcome. And if I don't attain the outcome, how do I move on without saying, oh, I can just keep trying again to keep getting the outcome?
Yep.
Because it's still focused on that.
That's very interesting, because for me, sports has always been about doing your best, and results, yes, they play a role, but regardless of whether you win or lose, the next time you're back out on the turf, you're still doing your very best again. It's not that you win the World Cup and then you put your legs up saying that I'm done. Right? The next round you go back and you try and defend that World Cup, and then the next time you try and defend it again.
Yeah.
So really, are you really done?
But the commercial aspect of the sport,
Yes.
especially on a professional level, your the income that you get from if you win versus if you lose, is that different? I imagine that your reward will be different, right? If you don't actually
Slightly
win.
different.
Yeah.
It's not all or nothing. Even the runners-up get paid quite a bit, especially when you're in the World Cup finals.
That's right.
Different. Yes, the winners do get paid
More.
significantly more, but
Yeah.
it's not that the losers go home with nothing.
Yeah, but I think I'm just basically asking, like, if everything around us, if like this world is structured in such a way that like we are almost forced to have it centered around an outcome, like nowadays I think there's more of like a, oh, we've given it our best shot and like go team. But I think traditionally, like everything in my life at least has been structured in a way like that you center your entire thing around the outcome. So if you naturally become very attached to that. And so if it doesn't work out in that way, it's really hard to step away from it and appreciate other parts of your journey.
Yep. I think we do live in a very goal-driven world these days. And just going back to that sports scenario, I think one of the most highly achieving teams in the cricketing world is Team Australia. They won the most amount of World Cups, yet most people don't consider them to be.
It's the attitude.
It's the attitude, right? There you go. So winning
Bringing the
is not
sandpaper out.
winning isn't everything. But we forget that.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget that. Yeah.
So I guess it's just how we look at it. And going back to, okay, if we want to look at it from the lens of Vedanta,
Yeah.
according to Vedanta, in life, we are all infinite consciousness. Right? We play a role in the world outside, but it's just a play. And that's the whole idea of a play, a game. That you play your best, you leave whatever happens on the field, and when you walk out, it does not matter.
The time in the moment is past.
Yeah. Like on the stage, whether you play the role of a villain or the hero, whether you live or you die in the film, you still walk out rich. You all get paid, right?
Yeah.
It's just a role that we are playing, and our job is to do the best that we can. The outcome is not in our hands. That's written by, the outcome is controlled by the script writer,
Mm-hmm.
right? The one who's written the play or the movie.
Yeah.
They've determined it.
Mm.
Our job is to do our role to the best of our abilities. Similarly, we can say that our life has been charted out by our prarabdha. All we can do is give it our very best. And in that giving it our best, there is this spiritual unfoldment that happens where we are able to detach ourselves from that goal-driven mindset to being available to recognizing our true nature. As long as we are centered on the outcome, we remain extroverted. I won't say blissfully unaware. We suffer a lot because of it. Unaware of our true nature and our infinite potential.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are able to pull away from that object-driven mindset, we are able to become introverted. Recognizing our infinite nature becomes a possibility, and according to Vedanta, this whole life is a stage given us to able to generate that introvertedness to recognize who we truly are. And if we are able to do that, then whether you win or lose in the world outside, it's immaterial. The real job is to recognize your true nature within, that inner happiness which is ever present, but we tend to seek it, chase it in the world outside. So why mourn? Because whether you win or lose, what is really in your hand is do your best and develop this attitude of equanimity towards the result,
Mm-hmm.
and turn within to recognize that inner happiness. That's the Vedantic perspective.
Yeah. I was going to say off that as well, is it's not saying, because you can look at it from that high level and from the Vedantic perspective, it doesn't mean that because you're not attached to the outcome doesn't mean that you don't do your best. You give your absolute.
In fact, I think we are able to give our absolute best
Yeah.
when we are not too preoccupied, anxious, fearful of the outcome.
Mm. Yeah.
Which I think we see when we're doing any sort of seva, right? When you're like really convinced of why you're serving, I feel like in those times I'm so much more open to the process of whatever I'm doing than if I'm like worried about like, oh, what is this person going to think of me? Because I'm like directly affected by any sort of result. But if it's in the attitude of seva, I find, and I've noticed in so many other people as well, when they serve, like they're so much more open and so much more available. So yeah, that is interesting. And it's true. It's just like so difficult to remember in the moment of you feeling like a really bad loss, you know,
Yeah.
to remind yourself of like,
Yes.
of all of this.
It's very interesting. The way Vedanta, and this is very explicitly given in the Bhagavad Gita, is that this attitude is to be adopted not while working or while encountering the results, but prior to engaging in the work. Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, Sukha dukkhe samikritva labha labho jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. You won't be tainted by the outcome of the result when you first become equanimous towards sukha and dukkha, joy or sorrow, labha or alabha, gain or loss, jaya and ajaya, victory or defeat, having made them the same. Thereafter you engage in what? Tato yuddhaya yujyasva. There he's addressing Arjuna, so he says, thereafter you start fighting. You engage in your fight, in your battle that
Just
you
do
are,
your job.
do your job.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
first, make the results the same.
Yeah.
Because really, the outcome is not of primary importance.
Mm-hmm.
What is of importance is the ability to turn within and recognize that inner happiness. And therefore we come back to that rule 1 of spirituality, that happiness is within. The moment I forget this, there's really no coming back. But when I hold on to this idea that happiness is within, I can do my best. We're not saying don't do your best. You may win, you may not win. The outcome is never 100% in our hands. You can be the best player and then you can have an ankle twist or some injury and you're out and you can't perform. Or a refereeing decision which does not go your way and it's beyond your control. So technicalities. And there's so many things. We are not 100% in control of our destiny. We are just contributors towards it. And if we are able to remember this and work with this idea from the very beginning, then perhaps when the results come, we won't be affected as much.
Or for as long.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we hold on to a lot of things, right? And so we've got to also learn how to let go.
Yeah.
Make our peace and keep going.
Go on, I was just thinking, I just connected a couple dots, and I'm sure a lot of people have already connected these dots, but it just clicked for me when you were speaking, Ishaanji, just about how the importance of understanding yourself, because I've heard this so many times in class that we need to know ourselves, we have to understand who we are. And it's just because we're misidentifying ourselves with so many other things, and that's why we get so upset. So I've identified myself with this outcome that I'm working towards, and so my happiness is in that. But if I had correctly known who I was and identified with the correct thing within me, then regardless of what happened outside, I would be unaffected. So it's literally just because I don't know who I am. I don't understand why I didn't get this until now. I'm why does it matter? Why do we have to know who we are to act in this world? But it's because I'm not even identifying with anything correct. Oh my gosh.
The penny drops in the penny drops in different ways for different
tube
people.
light, honestly, tube light. And I was because we always talk about how attachment is just us identifying ourselves with something external to us. And so obviously if I identified myself with something within me, then no matter what happened outside, I'd be whatever, because I'm still me. And I'm still unaffected. Wow.
And so taking that, you can still then be the best player in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, we find realized masters being the best players that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Doing their utmost best until their very last breath.
Yep.
Why? They don't have anything to gain from it. It's just them sharing their love for everyone. That's it. It's just an expression of who they are. It's not for a particular outcome. Not that outcomes are not achieved. They may be achieved, they may not be. But it's irrelevant. It's a very powerful way of living, very powerful way of thinking.
So much strength in living that way, right?
Absolutely.
It feels concrete and rooted.
Yeah, but we don't recognize that, and we still see, no, when I get that objective, then I've achieved something. But even if I achieved it, how long? The next World Cup's 4 years.
Yeah.
You have to do it all over again.
Then that also brings the stress and the anxiety of having to retain the title.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
So even if you win,
There's
it's
the
still
more.
Yeah.
So there's more pain that comes, more burden to bear,
It's never ending in the world outside.
Right. Yeah. Anything more to add, guys?
That's it for me.
I'm still reeling over my realization. It's too good.
If you're there and you're listening this morning, we're sending you hugs. But we're also there to help you out and to help you just think beyond what happens and
The outcomes.
the outcome. This is all a play. We're all in the game. And
our job is to play the best game, not to win.
that's all we need to say. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Thinking is Free. proudly brought to you by Chinmaya Mission New Zealand. For more information on events, courses, seva projects and study groups, please visit chinmaya.org.nz. Hari Om.